this one came to me really, really easily when you asked the question. It's the fall 2006 Junya Watanabe show, and if my memory serves, it was the first Junya Watanabe show I reviewed for Style.com. So I was paying extra close attention. And it's been so much fun to go back and look at those pictures this week, because I really think that one of the things about that makes Junya so incredibly successful and so great at what he does is how sort of timeless and ageless the clothes are. Like, that collection is going back 7 years, and it doesnit doesn't look dated to me at all, really. It really looks like you could, walk into the showroom and you wouldn't be surprised if it was actually the fall 2013 show. I don't think a lot of designers can do that, and so that's one of the reasons why the show is so great. The other was it just felt really, really like raw and powerful. Of course, it helped that the Sex Pistols, Anarchy in the UK was playing during the show, and we had been well prepped, a season before to expect something like that. The season before, Junya did those insane masks and headgear with the foot-long spikes coming out of it, and this season for Fall '06, it was it was much sort of closer to the face, and it was the safety pins sort of pinning these ski masks sort of together, and the girls really looked like warriors from the apocalypse, or warriors from the punk streets of London, I guess. And I love a cargo pant. I love a military jacket, and the things that that Junya did with them. The way he sort of wrapped them around the body, or cut them up in pieces and reconstructed them to look like Edwardian jackets, which is something obviously he's done time and again, over the years. It's really amazing. It's almost couture-like in a way, but on the other hand, they're because of the materials, I suppose. They're so everyday, and really, when I went back and looked at the show, I would be very hard pressed to tell you which one. If I had to choose which one, I would want them all.
I'm struck because you mentioned kind of the soundtrack, and I think one thing that really comes across in your review of the show, because I was reading it earlier today, is that kind of that attitude and that vibe. And you mentioned in your review, obviously at that time you said there was a war going on, and was the collection incredibly spirited? Do you remember watching it and feeling in any way kind of moved or motivated by what you were seeing?
I actually totally forgot that part. But of course, we were sort of in the middle of a very long, protracted, war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it's hard to go back there and remember if Junya was making a comment on that. It could be. It also, I also just think that punk and has always been a really strong sort of influence on him. And of course Ray Kawakubo at Comme des Garçons, and it's hard to say. He's a designer of very few words compared to a lot of designers. So I can't say that I spoke to him and at that moment and knew if war was or the Middle East issues were on his mind. It must have struck a chord with me at the time. Now it's
just timeless now.
It's timeless, and also for better or for worse, I think. I think a lot of the sort of association, the once upon a time, back in the 70s say it was truly, truly punk for people to wear sort of military clothes on the street. It was a commentary about the Vietnam War, or probably. And, of course, you're coming off of the 50s and 60s when they're, sort of dressing down and casual Fridays and all of that really, didn't exist. That sort of, punk really was this like anarchic thing that was happening. And now, 40 years later, it's everything is sort of fair game. So in a way, the, military tropes, the army green and all of that stuff has really, I think, sort of lost a lot of its power to shock and its like the impact and like certainly most of its political associations, but it hasn't really lost like its sort of badge of cool. Like it's still I think it'll probably always still look really cool to be sort of an army drab.
I think that's an incredibly insightful point about how things have lost their ability to shock, because I think that's a lot of this chaos to couture. That's kind of what it's getting at. And when you see punk sort of rehashed on the runways, it doesn't have that same energy, I don't think. But that's what's so special about that Junya collection. And I'm sorry to quote your review back at you again, but you said, it never feels like he's being provocative just for the sake of it. And do you think that's what made it so successful, that it didn't feel like an attempt to make a point, it just felt like a point? It's a big question.
I honestly can't get back to, I can't quite get back to, how I was feeling then. I just know that it's really, it's really sort of stuck with me. And when I went back again and looked this week, it really, this is such a sort of a trite, cliched thing to say, in fashion, but it just still looks really fresh to me. Like, wouldn't you die to have some of those, the colorful sort of holy sweaters? They're just perfect. And, I guess that's also a sign that like a lot of younger designers look at Junya a lot. I think that he's actually quite influential now on a younger generation.